Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. It's another hit and miss week for the boys in blue and white. It's a rollercoaster being a Rovers fan. To be fair, though, I'm just wondering whether Man Utd will join the shortlist of Premier League champions to drop down a level, but that's another thing. But here are the headlines. So, Rovers proved that Project Flood was a success as they beat Portsmouth in the rearranged fixture 3-0 after a great second half performance. Maybe Project Flood wasn't a great success because without that break, a tired-looking Rovers travel to Oxford and lose 1-0. Fans have started putting pairs under the microscope again on social media. But is this harsh? We'll get into that one. Tronstad pulls up with a hamstring injury as we're left asking, what is it with all these non-contact injuries? And Rovers now prepare to play bogey sides Coventry and kind of a bogey side when at their place, Bristol City. Mark, it's up and down at the moment, isn't it?
It is. I think we expected this, didn't we? It's obviously a very, very busy period in Christmas time, New Year. The Championship's notoriously like this. Winning in the FA Cup means we've got another midweek game and we haven't got the squad to cope with it right now. So the fact that we've still managed to end this week back in the playoffs, I'm going to keep saying it. I'll keep taking it. But the gap between us now and the top 3 or 4 is massive, and the gap between us and sort of 8th and 9th is not very big, is it? So it's just coming into focus a bit how much we need to, for me, get into that transfer market as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you only get so many gifts, don't you? I mean, we're here now. We're in a great position. You look at the league and you think, oh my God, like what a season we're having. But we're just seeing so many missed opportunities, and it's not going to be long before the teams below us start picking up the points when we're losing it. And you want to be, if any team starts picking up the points, you want it to be you. But we seem to just be so up and down. And let's get into the first up, and that was the Portsmouth game. Let's listen to the initial match reaction that we did.
Well, mate, back in the playoffs. Yeah, chuffed. Really chuffed with that. First half, another one to forget. Some frustrating moments, obviously. There was a few times I was a bit worried, but then Big Mac proving me wrong, getting up, leaping, getting that goal from the golden boy, Callum Britton's cross. Then obviously Callum Britton goes and gets his goal, and Vyman gets his goal, and yeah, 3-0. Great result. You can only beat the people in front of you, like we've said before. And yeah, chuffed with that one.
Well, that was a strange one. 3-0. Obviously, a clean sheet. Looks really comfortable. Wasn't really the story of the game, but Pape came on, changed the game a bit, gave us a bit of threat up front, scored a good goal. But I've got to say, Callum Britton, I thought, what a cross for that first one. We know he's been outstanding all season. He's just getting better and better. And then what a finish. Who needs Trent Alexander-Arnold? I'm a bit worried about Real Madrid coming in for him now. But that was the game that we needed to make sure we win our game in hand. Win those games we need to win. I don't really care how we do it. And we've done it. Dare I say it? Things are looking rather promising.
And they were looking promising. Let's talk about it in isolation then. I came away from the game, obviously. I think I was actually more relieved because after that first half and how we started the second, I just didn't feel like we was getting anywhere. I thought it was going to be a really frustrating game, and I could just see it eking out a 0-0. And I actually said to the missus, I said, it's either going to be 0-0 or we're going to get beaten 1-0 here, because it just felt like it was a drab affair. Once again, we're talking about the fact that we couldn't break a team down. And then, like you said, Gay comes on and the game seems to change. Did you come away from the game relieved more than impressed now you've had a look at it?
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of the Birmingham game last season, when you started ringing some alarm bells and saying, I know we've won 4-2, but there was plenty of things that concerned you a little bit. I felt like that a bit this one. I thought we got the rubbers of green, didn't we? Definitely. We got the better of the refereeing decisions. We took our chances, which hasn't happened. But on another day, that could have easily been out of sight from Portsmouth, really. And I thought, I'm just starting to get a little bit concerned. But then at the same time, we've taken our chances. We've gone on to win 3-0. Pape has come on and looked what we hoped he would do. He's come on and really impacted the game. But I think the warning signs are just starting to creep in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that first half, it was just so drab once again. I mean, how would you sum up that first half performance?
It's now, in the last few games, there's been 4 or 5 halves of football, and I struggle to tell you anything that happened.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
I have a notepad out when I'm watching them on, on telly. I've got a notepad out, I've got a beer in hand, and I'm making all these notes. And just the first half, there was just nothing. It just seemed like a team that didn't have any ideas. They looked tired. Obviously, looking at the starting lineup, except for really Vyman starting up front, it was a team that really I expected to play. But again, not much rotation because we haven't really got the option of rotation. And, we'll get into transfer and so on, later on. But, we've got a team that's picking itself right now. And everyone just looked very, very tired. And I was stunned at the second half because I'm not sure necessarily the performance warranted a 3-0 win. Because there was a counter attack. Obviously, we clear it off the line and we counter and get a goal.
Yeah.
But I thought 3-0 kind of. I wasn't sure if it flattered us or just didn't tell the story. But there was something there where I was like, if someone said to me, "Our Rovers won 3-0, they dominated that," I'm saying, I'm not sure we actually did.
No, I think if it had been 1-0, I'd have sort of thought, well, I've seen that before from us where we've rolled our luck a little bit, but we've defended really well. And then we've taken a chance. It just didn't feel 3-0, did it? I think that was very unfair on them. But I mean, looking back at the game, I felt that quite similar performances to what we've seen from most of the players. I thought Buckley came in and did okay. I know we've had a bit of stick for our criticism of him last week, but it's only because we love him. I thought Dolan did okay in that first half. And actually, when Eustace went to make the changes, I wasn't surprised at all that he was making changes because, again, nothing was really happening. Nothing had really changed. So making them 10 minutes into the second half tells you that he wants more. He's asked the players for more and he's not getting it. So, right, let's make some changes. But Hedges, I thought, was the right change because Hedges, I've been really disappointed with him most of the season now. I think I really like him. I think particularly when you're going away to teams that are going to dominate the ball, he gives you that good support defensively. Now, whether it's tactics or whatever, he's not even been doing that recently. So I've just found that he's bringing nothing to the games at the minute. But then I thought Dolan was doing okay. So I actually thought Vyman playing out of position was the obvious man to come off because he doesn't really take Cantwell off, does he, regardless of his performance, because he can provide a few moments of quality. That said, Cozy Dewby came on liven the game up. Cantwell seemed to come alive the moment Gay come on. He got far closer to him. It felt like he thought he sort of knew where he should be on the pitch. He had a reference point. Then when he was dropping deep, they weren't expecting it as much. And that's where, the ball out to Brereton came from a lovely ball from Cantwell. And his numbers are not creeping up, Cantwell, and people are starting to use that as a bit of a stick to beat him with. But I'd urge them to go back and look at our goals and maybe have to rewind it just beyond the initial assist. And he's involved in near enough every element of our good play.
Yeah, he's a key part of how we flow forward. That he is a key part of it, and he makes chances for other people to make chances. He has got that vision. He's the link between the defensive midfield, stroke defenders, and the attack. And sometimes he seems He seems like he's not really affecting the game much, but like you say, he absolutely is. He has got that quality. I think some people probably expect a little bit too much out of him, and I'm one of them. I expect a lot out of Dolan because I know what level they can play to. I mean, going to Dolan, I don't think he played fantastic, but he was okay. He did have a little dance at one point. Again, he seems to enjoy that, but I still feel like there's so much more to come from them. And I don't know whether that's because of tiredness, mental tiredness, but someone like Dolan, who's not exactly getting a hell of a lot of game time, I want them to come into these games and absolutely explode and show what they can do, whether it's for us or another club to come in. Hedges, 100% agree. I'm a massive fan of Hedges, but this season he just hasn't found his rhythm. Whether that's because he's been in and out of the team, there might be something going on there where they're trying to get him stronger and fitter so he can last longer in games, have a better run of games. I don't know. But for someone like Hedges, who was one of our key, players, when he played, we tended to play well, and when he didn't, we didn't. For him now to be on the cusp of being a depth player now is quite strange for me. But yeah, I looked at the starting lineup and I felt like it picked itself. It would have been interesting to see if Forshaw or Sanderson may have started, but they haven't been with us long, and they've still got to get up to speed. So yeah, I was happy enough with that. I just feel like sometimes things seem a bit drab, but I don't know whether that's used to setting us up to kind of slow things down, relax a little bit more, don't have the energy. Because if we play too high a tempo too often when you haven't got much depth, you are just going to be knackered. So I think there is a tactical decision there just to say, right, let's have a half of, let's knock it about. If we get a chance, we get a chance. If we don't, we don't. And then we start to go for it. We used to do, obviously, the reverse, where it was 100% effort 100% of the time for about 10 minutes. And then we just, petered out. Whereas maybe this was part of the tactical decision. But let's get on to Gay coming on. So I knew that Gay had obviously was coming on and he'd done well, because X decided to tell me, with the amount of stuff I was being tagged in, about whether I was going to apologise and things like that. I stand by what I said about him, but he had a good game. I thought he came on, he affected it. It was a good header. He's using his strengths. I mean, our boy Callum Britton's doing Callum Britton things. I mean, like you said, he's our David Beckham, isn't he? But I just think that if you play to his strengths, it's great. If you simplify the game with him, it's great. He just can't do the stuff that, is next level. How much do you think he affected the overall result?
I think he was pivotal in it. I think Callum Britton was our best player by a million miles, but Gay, just some of it by being a focal point and not even what he was doing with the ball, but massively affected it. They were worried by him. He looks confident again at the moment. So the things that he was struggling to do, where his touch was awful, wasn't it, for a spell, and his shots were becoming comical, which aren't his strengths, and they're never going to be, but he's doing them much more at a level you'd expect now. But then, like you said, we're playing to his strengths a little bit. And, I think he's figured out how we want him to play, and we figured out how we need to play with him. Some of that is Campbell getting a reel in and around him. So Gay's not, he's been winning flick-ons before, and then he's heading it so far that it's going to the fullback and nobody's there. So then people are mourning at him, and it's just looked a bit disjointed. He just looks like he gets it a bit more. That said, I still think he's limited. I think he is what he is. I think we'll get some good performances out of him if we play to his strengths. I think he'll play in bursts. There's times where, like against Leeds, we'll use him. We'll plan to use him off the bench, and he'll be really effective. I think his confidence has come up a bit. But I thought in this game, he made the difference. I think Campbell's touch and his ball out wide was a moment that nobody else probably could have done. And then Callum Britton's performance was what we're expecting of him now. It was almost something that you don't rave about because I'm expecting it. I have yet to see a right back in the Championship this season as good, and that could cause the headache. But I think just in terms of turning points, it was causing Juby a little bit, but mainly, Gay. I think he changed the game for us.
The thing is we've got to figure out the likes of Callum Brereton and the Gays, what is form and what is actually their abilities. So Britain, we've been singing his praises for quite a while now, and now he's taken a big leap in his development, and you can tell how important he is. That is right back is his now. That is it. If he stays fit, that's his position. Gay to defend us a little bit, and it's kind of going off what you just said there. We said like we think he was brought to be a Plan B player, and this was Plan B. He came on and he did a job, and that's sometimes what you need. Some people are saying, "Oh, he's like Jason Roberts." I'd never rated Jason Roberts, by the way. I'm not sure how many people actually did, but anyway. But sometimes you get strikers where they're like practice players, aren't they? So when they're in training and stuff, it's all good when you're doing it against your mates in training, where it's, you're seeing the same people day in, day out, and you've got to, you don't have to adapt too much because you know how to play against them. But doing it against someone where you don't know them and you don't necessarily know, their game, Gay, I think sometimes doesn't know how to play certain players, and we've seen that with the quality teams that we've played, and then we've come and played a team that isn't quite as good quality, and he's managed to do well. I'm not trying to defend myself in any way with what I was saying or try and say that Gay didn't put in the performance, but it's horses for courses. He came on at the right time and did the right job against the right people. And you've got to say that's exactly what we would have bought him for. I don't think he's our number one striker. I think he's a great Plan B. He came on and he did the job. But I completely agree. That ball from Callum Brereton, if we can put more and more in for him, and Gay does stuff like that, it's a great thing. We've been calling for it since the Sam Gallagher days. Sometimes you don't have to keep playing it into the box of, tiki-taka kind of football. You can just lump it in now and again and give them a different headache. And we did that, and that was it. And I do think that Portsmouth reacted okay. It wasn't like they capitulated. But Callum Brereton's goal, great finish. I think he said when it fell to him, he just thought, I'm hitting it. And he did. He only scores good goals, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think, like you've said there, you're absolutely spot on. Callum Brereton now is playing at a level where I kind of expect this every week. Maybe not to quite 10 out of 10, I would give this. But I think his 8 out of 10 is still going to be one of our best performers. I think Gay came on 6 minutes later, he scored. That helped because his confidence then is massive, isn't it? Confidence with him, I think. And he performed at a level that I think is pretty standard for him. I think we should expect him to perform at that level. But Callum Brereton's goal, he almost gives us the most attacking threat out of the team. The way that we set up is to give him that license to get forward. Obviously, the back four, but the other 3 members then shuffle across and become a back 3. Beck's learning that role a bit better now. I think Harry Pickering's excellent at that. And that means Britain.
Do you think it's because he's got a directness about him?
Yeah, but I mean, he was a winger, wasn't he, when he started out? He had a terrible injury record at Rovers when he came, but that was the first time he'd really had a poor injury record in a season. So actually the norm for Callum Brereton, because we worry about him breaking down, is what he's doing now. But the amount of effort he gets through, the amount of runs he gets through, his high-intensity runs. And I'm not quite sure why teams haven't worked us out a little bit yet, because everything comes down that side. And you just think it doesn't take a genius to work out. Almost pinned Callum Brereton back, like Sunderland did. They put 2 wingers high and wide and said, right, Beck and Brereton, how are you going to deal with this? And it meant Brereton couldn't really go forward. And I think you stifle so much of our good play when that happens. But I just look at him now and I think the athleticism he's showing, the quality he's showing on the ball, he's good defending one-on-one, he's robust, he's playing twice a week. I do think we're going to have a fight to keep him in our team, in terms of teams are going to be sniffing around him, and why wouldn't they?
We talked about Buckley last week, and sometimes players need to look at themselves and think, what do I want out of my career? Do I want to just be at Blackburn Rovers? Do I just want to be a player that bounces around the Championship? Or do I dig deep? I do everything I need to do with the extracurriculars. So that is in the gym, it's the yoga and things like that, just generally looking after themselves. And he looks like the kind of person now that's actually thought to himself, right, I can actually make a really good career here. I've got something. I've got this base ability. I've now started to get a bit of experience at a high level to what I was. So now if I start doing X, Y, and Z and I do these extracurriculars, I can really push on and make a career for myself. And it's the kind of thing you want all players to do. You want them all to be professional. And he looks like he's been really working on things like that. He's got a different... he looks like he's just got this like swagger about him now. Like, when he's on the ball, he looks confident. Like, he wants the ball. He wants to move forward. He's got this directness. He's got the quality. I just want him to improve. And if he improves, and we lose him, we're going to lose him for a lot of money, hopefully. How old is he? Keep forgetting how old he is.
I think now. But I think you've got to praise Eustace in this as well, because he came to the club under Thomason and he was asked to play sort of an inverted position and role. He was asked to drop into midfield. And I think it took time for him to learn that. Then he had to start with injuries. But Eustace is playing into his absolute strengths. We know when you've been a winger, generally speaking, you're very good on the ball. And I go back to when we used to have Brett Emerton. Brett Emerton started as a winger. His problem was when somebody faced him at one-on-one, he really struggled. He didn't have that David Bentley quality to individually beat somebody one-on-one. So what you want, therefore, he can put a good ball across and he's got loads of athleticism, is to have everything in front of you. And Callum Britton's doing that. I mean, we've played him sometimes on the right-hand side, and I think he does a job there. I think he gives us something, probably defensively, and he's okay. But then he comes into the right-back position. Everything's in front of him. You usually have quite a lot of time on your hands at right-back. But now, like you say, he's striding forward with his swagger, knowing I've got the quality to deliver this ball if you drop off. And if you don't, I've got the athleticism to get round you. But he also does this he does this sort of a dummy over the ball. It feigns to cross and then knocks it past them. And they fall for it 2 or 3 times a game.
Yeah.
I know what he's going to do. I actually think they know what he's going to do, and they just can't stop it.
They're worried that he's not going to do it, and then they overthink it, and then they're on their ass. Yeah.
But how many times does he get to the byline and cut back?
Yeah. Well, he's got that quickness that we talked about with Dolan that we wanted.
Yeah.
So he's got some pace, don't get me wrong, but he's got a quickness. He's got a quickness of thought, a quickness thinking. His feet's very quick. And I just looked, he's 26. Yeah. So he's played 176 games across the Championship and League One. Well, not many in League One, to be honest. It's mainly Championship. So he's got experience of the league. I just think he's starting to figure things out. He's figuring himself out. And I mean, WhoScored.com had him as a 9.4 for us, which is a very high rating for a game. And I think it's been one of our best recent signings, because he didn't come for much, did he?
No, he didn't at all. And I think his acceleration, like you say, is probably the key. Over a distance, I would imagine he's not our quickest player, but acceleration-wise he is. But the other thing he does, and one of the few players that we've got that does this, I think JRC does this very well, actually, is he's very decisive in what he's going to do. So he doesn't overthink it, he doesn't delay it, and he like you, I suppose, like you keep asking Dolan to do, he just does it. And then sometimes, even if it's, Smodic's used to do this, even if it's the wrong ball, because you've done it at pace and you've been decisive with it, it can be quite effective. Particularly when you're somebody like Callum Britton who's very direct. So long may it continue for me, because without him, we create very little. He is our main creative outlet, other than Campbell, but he doesn't directly impact in terms of assists. Callum Britton must have made us the most chances this season by quite a stretch, I would say.
I'll have to have a look at that actually, because I completely agree. But I don't like talking about without him because we're getting so many injuries. I don't want him to be one of them. I'll be absolutely devastated. But obviously, we move on from him to the Weimann goal. He's your boy. You've always said that if you wanted a chance to fall to someone, it would be to Weimann. He mops up a shot and gets the goal. That was game over. Was it a case of just party time after that?
It was pretty comfortable, wasn't it, after that? And I thought, yeah, for me, Weimann's just got that. We'll talk about it there with Britain, but he's got that confidence in himself that he knows he can finish, which means he's calm and cool when he needs to be. I don't think it was any coincidence that he was more involved and more impactful when he moved away from being a false nine. That experiment didn't work. It was probably just better than the Bradley Johnson false nine, but not much. It really, really didn't work, did it? We just looked completely toothless. But yeah, I think at that point I couldn't see any danger. I actually started, to be perfectly honest, to be a little bit sorry for Portsmouth because I thought their poor fans, there was 1,500 fans. Most of them have probably come up once, near enough. They've come up again. They have been shortchanged off the ref there, and they've been hammered 3-0 when they didn't deserve a 3-0 scoreline either. So I felt a little bit sorry for Portsmouth fans because I've no ill feeling towards them. Usually with some club or other, I'm a bit bitter about something, but I have nothing against Portsmouth. So so I felt a bit sorry for them. So I'm going to apologise to Portsmouth on Rovers' behalf.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because obviously they came at once and were sent back without a game, and then they come back up, and we drove them 3-0 in the second half after they felt like they probably deserved something out of it. So the game finishes. Obviously, we've done our reactions, looking at the fan reactions on Rovers. Everyone's just saying very similar to us. There's no point in going through it. It's all there's a lot of gay support, but generally people just saying how good Callum Britton is and how lucky we are to have him, which is great. So was you any 3-word reactions you were particularly
I think the only one
with?
that we can really refer to is the Rovers one, which was Britain's Got Talent.
Absolutely. And was you happy with the performance in the end?
Yeah.
Wasn't just about, isn't it? Yeah. Just about a yes. I know that's a 3-0 win, but when you're playing Portsmouth at home, they're not the most, they're not the team that's going to come and give us the most problems. And yes, we did win 3-0, but like we said earlier, there was a few alarm bells, and we find out why a few days later when we travel to Oxford. It's like we said last week, we're now in a period of fixtures where you hope you're going to get some out of it. Now, if you get 2 draws in these games, you only come 2 points, but you sometimes come away and you're like slightly happier because you're like, well, we haven't been beaten. But obviously, we come into this one. I was relatively confident. I was quite blindly confident on the day. But let's listen to the fan reaction for the reaction from us first.
Well, in the interest of honesty, I didn't watch the game live. I had stuff on this weekend that I couldn't shift, so I've watched it a bit later. But you, Mark, kindly sent me some reports of what was going on and so on and so forth, and it just seemed to be a game to forget for us. And I watched it back, and it seemed a game to forget for us. I know Pears has got quite a lot of pelters for the free kick. I'm going to break that down in the pod. I just think that it's a depth thing still, isn't it, mate? We just need players. I mean, we see people with non-contact injuries going again. Travis and Tronstad, they were doing so well at the start of the season. Now they're going to be split up for a bit longer because it looks like Tronstad's going to be out. So, yeah, it's... Yeah, very up and down week this week, but that seems to be being a Rovers fan every week. So let's take it from there and break it down in the pod.
What a terrible Saturday. Tronstad out for a few weeks by the looks of it. And to be fair, first 20 minutes was all Oxford. We played for 25 minutes after that and looked decent. And then until the 90th minute, we were awful again. Created very little, not really any rhythm to our play. And then from the 90th minute onwards, we had 2 or 3 decent chances, half chances, and looked like we could score. But before then, we didn't look like we'd score if we played till next Saturday. Got to get into that transfer market now and get some creativity. And we said we needed 6 points from these games. Big game against Coventry.
It certainly will be. I missed the game live. You was sending me little things about what was going on, and I was just like, "Oh God, like this sounds awful." And then it just said "Goal Oxford," and I was like, that's it now." Just everything you was telling me about that first half, how we'd started the second, it was going to be if Oxford got their noses in front, that was it. Do you feel like that was basically the story of the game? Whoever got their nose in front was probably going to win, and that was it?
Yeah, I thought they looked very similar to Ewood. I thought they looked a decent team. First 20 minutes, we couldn't really get a kick. We couldn't get into the game. We couldn't pass a ball. And then we got to grips with it. And for probably the next 25 minutes, the rest of the half, we looked a good team. I was messaging you. I said, Buckley's looking back to what he can do. His timing was there, which I can allow him that's not been there because he's not been playing. So I think the game times helped him. He was intercepting the ball. He was striding forward. He was doing everything we've asked him to do. Not because we've asked him to do it, but he was having a pop at goal. He was trying to dictate play a bit more. Even when Tronstad had gone off, he almost looked around and you could see he thought, but it's on me now. So I was really, really pleased with that. I was pleased with how we'd ridden the storm although they were on top, they never really worried me. And then we started coming into it. So I went into half time thinking, do you know what? Gay's been holding the ball up. We've ridden a storm. We've had the better of the half. We'll come out now and we'll take the game away from them. And we started the second half. Well, that's a lie. The second half started and we started in the 92nd minute. It was all the first 20 minutes and worse. It was like the Portsmouth first half in terms of from us where nothing was happening, but like we hadn't realised the opposition had started properly and were really trying to win the game. And they just looked hungrier. I'm sure they weren't. I'm sure it was a fitness thing or whatever it was. You know, we had for sure got quite a lot of stick on social media. Felt a bit sorry for him. I thought he did okay. He's not. He's 33 and he's not really played much football. I thought he did all right, to be fair. I certainly wasn't pinpointing him and saying he's the reason we're losing. I just thought, Cozy Juba giving the ball away twice within a minute. He looked naive at that point and he's not really done that before. We changed it. Leonard came on. Didn't really make a blind bit of difference. Hedges came on. So, yeah, the short answer to your question, Matt, was absolutely. Once they scored, it didn't feel like it mattered who we were bringing on the pitch or what we were going to do. Nothing was going to change it. We just looked very, very flat.
Yeah, and it did have a feeling of men against boys sometimes. You know, I look at the Oxford team and they've been set up quite well. I mean, it was the battle of the ex-Blues managers, wasn't it? And Gary Rowett's no slouch. He knows how to set a team up. You know, I rated Gary Rowett quite highly for this level. And yeah, it just looked like a team that wanted it and a team that didn't. That was ultimately what I came to when I watched it. Because the thing is obviously because I'd known what you'd told me and then I saw the social media stuff after, by the time I did come to watch it, I already knew what was going to happen. So I already had a very negative view when I was watching it because I was like, okay, I know we're playing poor. So everything they did, we did, I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, that's rubbish. I know that's not going to pull off, and I know that's not great. So I came into it with a very blinkered view. But the one thing I did come away with was, in 2023, 2024, Mike would find this crazy to say, but how much we miss Lewis Travis, someone to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. I didn't feel like we'd needed him previously because I didn't think he was necessarily playing that role, but now he's started playing that role and playing it really well. We definitely missed him. Tronstad obviously getting his injury as well, but I think just generally the partnership of Tronstad and Travis we've missed in games like this, because this reminded me of like a game versus Preston, like where we just get bullied and you don't know why, but you just get bullied. And I don't think, obviously Gay didn't really have a hell of a lot to do, but it just was once again not enough depth. You look at the starting lineup, once again it's picked itself. You've got the same goalkeeper with the same defenders. I like it to an extent, but I want to see some rotation just to put some energy in. And I want those people to come in to think, well, this is my chance. I'm going to elevate my game to prove a point. You know, people think that, well, if it's working, you know, unless it's broke, don't fix it. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Things get tired. You know, we need to make the rotation at the same time. You said it a few weeks ago. I just think that, you know, there's a few things happening now which have happened in previous years where we just haven't got that depth. And this is exactly the kind of game, just like the last game in the first half, where you just see a team that's set up to play a certain way. And it seemed like we was just trying our best to get through the game because everyone seems so tired. We have got a little bit of rotation coming in, like you say, with Koji Dewberry. Gay then started, you know, but generally it was the same team that, you know, we kind of started with against Portsmouth. And again, it just seems to once again come down to rotation, comes down to hunger. And a lot of those boys, you're looking at them and they just look tired.
I think spot on. I think you're absolutely right about Travis, because he has been, when games have just been ticking along this year, he has been the captain we want. He's been the one rallying the troops. He's been the one getting a little bit more out of them. But I don't think they had it in them. They looks like getting through the game is probably a great expression. I think if we'd have got the goal and we'd have managed to put that in the bag and move on, fine. But once they'd gone 1-0 up, I don't think we had it in us to muster anything. I think they're looking a bit tired mentally. But that said, I remember the season under Mowbray where we were drawing games for fun. I would have loved us to go and win one and lose one. And there's been times in the past under Gary Boyer where he wouldn't commit to trying to win a game. And you're going, Gary, if you win one and lose one, we're in a better position than drawing these two. So there's still pluses there. There are still loads of positives. But I think we need to heed this warning as a club that we have looked tired. And the phrase the manager, whichever manager, has used for 3 years in a row now is this group needs help. And that is exactly what I would say. I love them all dearly. I think some are not of the quality right now to play every single week or to play more often than not. I think some are of the quality to play more often than not, but then need more help that we've got that same level to bring in. So I think Koji Dewberry is doing really, really well. We're probably asking too much of him. I don't think he's ready to start week in, week out. He's ready to make an impact, ready to play the odd game from the start. But generally speaking, for me, he's more of an impact player at the moment in his career. Gay, the same. Leonard, probably the same right now. But we don't have an option other than to try. And I feel so sorry for Eustace, because what else can he do? He looks at the bench and he's probably thinking, he's changing things out of hope, I would imagine, because you're looking at the bench and going, well, hope Rankin Costello comes on and does something, tries to kickstart us, runs beyond, gets a goal out of nothing. But there's nobody there right now
with an X factor
that we look at and go, you're going to change the game for us.
Yeah.
I think on Gay, he's obviously got two camps, hasn't he, on X? One that adore him, one that really do not. And one pipes up. You don't need to see the result. You don't need to see the game. You can tell how he's played by whichever one pipes up. And I think the truth's somewhere in the middle. I felt he actually did okay, particularly first half. I think we didn't get anywhere near around him enough. So he was very isolated, which then what you're supposed to do when you're up there on your own. But I also think he suffered a bit from the yellow card. He got a yellow card that was never a yellow card. And he just looked a little bit, you could see him sort of a bit hesitant and second guessing himself at a couple of times. So I felt sorry for Gay. I thought actually there wasn't much more we could do. I think you could have probably stuck Rudy Gestead up front, and maybe not now, although he's only 36, but Rudy Gestead up 10 years ago. He's going to struggle to do much because there was nobody around him, and they just didn't have the legs to get up and around him. And I'm not going to sit here and blame any one of the players or blame the manager. However, I did say it made me sit there question Eustace's picks against Middlesbrough. One, because of the Tronstad injury, but another just because of the legs and the games. I would have just completely rotated, but hey-ho. But I just looked at it and I was sat there the whole of the second half really going, if we get out of this, I'll take it. We just need help. We need...
Yeah, I mean, the term inevitable, isn't it, that we use quite a lot when we're in games like this. It's just inevitable you're going to lose it 1-0. And we can see that, I mean, we're not trained professionals in any way when it comes to running a championship football club. None of us fans are, but we can all see that it's a depth thing. And it's very, very difficult. I mean, we're going to get onto the transfer thing shortly. So let me put a pin in what I was about to say, because we'll get into that shortly. Let's finish this game off. So Cameron Brannigan, someone that we have been linked to in the past, and a lot of people that had said that he was someone we should really go and get. That comes back to bite us. He scores the free kick. Now, Pairs has got pelters for this. Now, Pairs has got pelters for a couple of things in the games. It was something that we'd spoken about, how he palms things into danger. You said that he'd done something similar in this game as well. And when I read the message, I was like, oh, right, okay, let's see what happens with this one. The free kick, there's not many good angles of this. There's one fan angle that obviously we put out, and it does look like it took a hefty deflection. And I'm going to give Pairs the benefit of the doubt on this, because Brannigan gave it absolutely everything he had for that shot. And Pairs didn't step right, so he can't even say I was stepping right for the ball to come over the wall. His stance was strong. He had a good dive, but it looked like it took a deflection just a few yards in front. And when the ball's coming at that pace, I know that he's a professional goalkeeper, but it's very difficult to get your hands in place to make a save there. So I think we give benefit of the doubt for Pairs on that one. He got a decent rating actually on who scored. They gave him a 7.5. I mean, he had to deal with quite a few shots, but I just think that generally the game was just a game that it's Rovers. It's Rovers. It's what we do. We'll go through a spell where everything seems to go right, and then we'll go through a spell where everything seems to go wrong. And this was a game where things just went wrong. I don't think we reacted well to the goal going in. Again, I'm watching it out knowing what happened. Felt like you said, that you look at the bench. There's no one there. There's no X factor. If we'd started Leonard and Gay to come on for the second half, would that have changed things? Maybe Gay might have been giving them a bit of a headache. I mean, but you look at the size of their defenders; they were dealing with him, and it's just one of those games. But I think it definitely comes down to depth. And I mean, before we leave the game, was there anything more you wanted to talk on the game, or should we get into talking about other stuff?
I think I've seen a few people having a pop at Beck, saying he turned his back. It's a bit harsh. It was fairly pelted. But I think, you said that it's a Rovers thing. I actually think it's a championship thing as well. It is the nature of the championship. Not many teams go through this period without well, not even just this period. There are strange results in the Championship. It must be the hardest league to try and get an accumulator on because there's always results. You look at it one week and you'll see Sunderland have beaten Rovers and Sunderland will then go and lose to Plymouth. It just happens in the Championship because it's relentless. And I think we need to keep it in perspective a little bit. We're fifth in the table by hook or by crook. Or certainly fifth, though we were certainly in the top six. So, yeah, I think let's not get too carried away with it.
Well, that's the thing. We're fifth in the league. Everyone's played the same now. We're 1 point into the playoffs. You got West Brom below us, Middlesbrough, Watford, Bristol City, Sheff Wednesday. All these ones are kind of sniffing around. We thought we'd be way lower than what we are now. And the window isn't done. The window's not closed. We know that we're being linked to players. Hopefully, we're going to get some people through the doors. I still trust Eustace. I think the one win on the form table, we've only got the one win, which isn't ideal. But it's not like everyone below us is, that's in catching distance have got amazing results going on. It is a crazy league this year. I think anything can happen, and we've got 2 games now that we can hopefully get something out of. So we'll go into reviewing them. But before that, have you got any 3-word reactions? Because I'll be honest, I looked at the Rovers fan reactions and basically they were all slagging off Pears and just moaning about everything. So there's no point in me going through that one.
That's what I was going to reference. Time for Toth was one that was quite popular. Now, I don't know about you. I feel like when Volstead appeared, and everyone was hoping he was going to be better than he actually turned out to be. I think Pears is going to be in for a rough ride these next few weeks because fans have seen, there's another option here. And I think those fans that have never been convinced by him will look for the slightest things. That said, the first 5-10 minutes of the game against Oxford, I was pulling my hair out with him because he did parry one back into danger. Then he made an absolute hash of one that he got away with. He was offside, but he got away with it. So he needs to just make sure he's helping himself at the same time. But yeah, time for Toth was the one that stood out.
Yeah, I feel sorry for him. I mean, I'm not going to ask you if you're happy with the performance because it's pretty obvious from both of us. It's a big fat no. I think I do feel sorry for Pears now because I do think he's had a good year. But again, similar to the others, we've got to find out what's form and what's quality and what's their actual ability. I think he's shown quite a lot of ability, but there is still some things sneaking in, and we don't have enough quality at the other end to counteract that. So if you make a mistake and a goal goes in, we haven't necessarily got the ability to go at the other end and score a goal or two to make up for any kind of mistake. So what we need is perfection from the goalkeeper and the defenders, which is extremely hard to ask for at this level with the kind of players that we can attract. So I'm not team Pears, team Toth or anything like that. I think that Eustace is dealing with it absolutely spot on at the moment. I don't think Pears was at fault for the goal. So ultimately, he hasn't made an error that's led to a goal. I can't even remember him making an error this season that's led to a goal as such. I mean, there might have been something that triggered something. But, Pears is going to be the number one. But I do agree with you. I think he's going to be under the microscope with a lot of fans. But, I mean, I've been to Ewa Park for a long time. And since Friedel, they've all given all the goalkeepers pelters. So I think it's just a Rovers fan. Well, it's a football fan thing just to have a go at goalkeepers sometimes. But we do move into 2 games that I was hoping would be we'd be going in with 6 points and we'd be quite positive because we don't do well against Coventry, and I'm desperate to do well against Coventry. I know quite a few Coventry fans. They do my head in, and I want to win. So, Mark, tell me we're going to win and how we're going to do it.
Do you want me to tell you we're going to win, or Do you want me to tell you the truth?
Well, just lie to me to start with. Just tell me we're going to win to start with, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of why we're not going to.
We're definitely going to win, Mike. Coventry have played away at Norwich recently and lost. They've played away at Cardiff, who we know are awful and only drew, and Cardiff had 10 men. Does that help?
A little bit. A little bit.
But
I think this is probably the worst Coventry side we've played in the periods that we've done poorly against them.
I mean, Lampard's got 15 points, is it, from 10 games now? So he stopped the rot a little bit, but their fans are having a pop at their players left, right, and centre. I was looking at some of their reaction to our alleged bid to Asante, and some of the fans there were saying quite mixed about him, but they were saying, you can take Hadji Wright, you can take Ellis Sims, and I'm thinking, we went out of this transfer window just from a Rovers perception and brought in Ellis Sims and Hadji Wright on the left. I'd be going, that's it, we're up. So it shows you, doesn't it, when you don't watch players week in, week out, and also when your team's on a bad run or in a bit of a rut, players from the outside that you look at and think, Hadji Wright, I think, caused us so much trouble over the years. And Ellis Sims, I think, he's not a world beater, but he's a good Championship striker. But from what they were reading, you would have thought, Mike, they were talking about Tyrese Dolan and Sam Gallagher from Rovers fans. You really would.
So I know not all's right there. I mean, it's not like we're scoring loads of goals or anything. I know we've got the 3 against Portsmouth, but it's not like we're scoring loads of goals. But at least we look. I think a lot of our fans still look at us and can see that there's something to work with our squad. It seems like the Coventry fans they just feel like it feels like Samsung, flying too close to the sun. It's like that playoff final. They just flew a bit too close to the sun. I think they should be up there. Do you know what I mean? It's like they seem to have a sense of I don't know, grandeur that they should be up there. I don't know.
No, I think it stems, doesn't it? In the summer, obviously they had Robbins as manager, and they got rid of the people that were his allies, really, and he had a falling out with somebody in the background. The recruitment team and him weren't aligned, and I think the fans understandably took Robbins' side and then felt he wasn't being backed. And I think they feel a bit like Rovers fans probably will now, if we don't get the window we want, we'll feel disheartened, and the world will be on February the 1st. If we've not brought in who we think we need to bring in, it doesn't matter what we do on the pitch. The world will be ending, won't it? It'll be, we want Waggett back out. We want Venky's there, need shooting. It'll be, the whole thing will come back out. I think Coventry are having that moment. I think they feel like they've had money in the bank from some of the sales. They made good money. They're in a good position in the league. They were building year on year, and I think they feel like the rug's been pulled from under them as fans. And we know that can mean it's a bit of a long road back. But I think they've also got to remember where they've come from. They were in League One for a long time. They've, I would say, probably, punched above their weight a little bit. It wasn't that long ago that they needed to sell Dom Hyam to us to pay for their pitch, was it? So, I'm not saying they should be grateful for where they are. They're quite a well-supported club. But at the same time, I think the truth, like I've said a few times,
I agree.
Truth somewhere in the middle. I think but I think
I agree. I mean, I worked at the Rico. My company did some work near the Rico, and it seemed like there was nothing to do with Coventry around. It was all Wasps, and like it just seemed like they just didn't exist. And suddenly they gradually came back and became something. And, I've been to, when we've gone there, they're loud fans. It's a loud stadium. And they seem to build themselves back up. And it seems like they want to knock themselves back down again. It's really strange atmosphere there.
Yeah. I felt very sorry for them. They were obviously, they didn't move themselves quite as far as MK Dons ended up being moved from Wimbledon, but they were playing miles away from their home. They didn't really feel like they belonged at the Rico. They didn't like their owners, and the owners were using it for money and things. This felt like they've settled down a little bit, didn't it? So whether some of that frustration is coming back out. I don't know. But in terms of on the pitch, yeah, they're having a poor season. We did last season. It happens. It's not the end of the world. And from an outsider looking in, they've got quite a few players who I would snap their hands off to take. You know, we'd all have Ben Sheaf, I think. I won't touch Ben Wilson with a barge pole because he's just a pain in the rear. But they've got some decent players, and they've obviously got Liam Kitchen, a left-sided centre-half, who's managed to find his way in the team, who Rovers apparently quite fancy. And then there's a certain Brandon Thomas Asante that we were mentioned in the Class of 92 documentary is trying to sign for 75 grand, was it? And now we're talking of paying 1.75 million for him until he goes and scores at the weekend.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm now looking at this fixture, and I don't know whether it's a game that we can bounce back from, because it seems like the easiest thing to do is have a game where, when we play like we did against Oxford, the next one or the one after, we tend to bounce back and everyone's like, oh, I don't know what we was worried about. I think that the fact that we're at home, I think it helps us a little bit, because I think Coventry midweek away is quite a difficult place to go to, because, like I said, it is loud. It's definitely a place which is difficult to go and get points from. So there's a 10-point difference between the clubs. I think it is a team that we could go and get something out of. Obviously, the time this comes out, the game is tonight. I would just take a solid performance at the back, nick the game, we all move on. Do you think it's got goals in it, this game?
No, I think it'll be a horrible, horrible game, and I will take a 1-0 right now. I was fortunate enough in some ways. I used to go to watch Everton quite a lot. I used to get tickets. And when Frank Lampard was there, he seemed like a really nice bloke, but tactically he got done quite a few times. And I think Eustace is tactically very good. I worry about us because of how many injuries we've got. Can Forshaw and Buckley give us a good 80 minutes? I'm not sure. So is he going to have to try and pull a bit of a rabbit out of the hat there, do something a bit different? But I think my mind, because it's Coventry and the recent history with them, is what's stopping me being quite confident, if I'm being honest. But I think they'll come at us. I think they've got players that fancy themselves a bit, and I don't mind that. I mean, Brandon Thomas Asante is clearly going to play and score, so we're going to have to get 2 goals. But that aside, yeah, I think I'm quite happy for us to set up and say, go on then, what have you got? And frustrate them, and then get something from a set piece. I probably would do what he did against Portsmouth. I think I'd start with Leonard, not so much for the purpose of picking who's starting, but I'd rather we ended the game with Gay, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what I said with the Oxford one. I just feel like he's someone that comes off the bench and just causes havoc. He has an energy about him, a strength about him. And when you've been in a game for 60 minutes, and then obviously a big 6-foot-odd striker comes on and just buzzes around, he can come on and actually affect the game as that plan B. So I'd take that. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much rotation. I do think it'll be very much like that Portsmouth game. I think there's a lot of storylines in this game. Eustace, I think, will really want something out of this. He'll want the bounce back from the weekend. And then that takes us into the Bristol game away. Obviously, Coventry have just beaten Bristol. So if we beat Coventry, by law of averages, we should go and beat Bristol. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But Bristol hasn't been a very kind place to go for us. Where do you see that going? Does the Coventry game affect that game as well?
I think it does fitness-wise. I think he will have to have both games in his mind a little bit. I think it could be very similar to the Portsmouth and the Oxford game. I think you'll see Hedges start at home and probably Leonard. I think you'll see Gay and Cozy Juba come on. And I think it could be the reverse at weekend. Bristol City's a horrible place to go for us, isn't it? We've had horrible memories there. Was it 5 last year under Eustace?
So last year was the 5-0 where my friend, your friend, and our friend Dan from Rovers Chat was caught on the camera looking very angry at the fans in that 5-0 drubbing. But that was the game where it was all mistakes. Hyam had the worst game he's ever played for us. Everything was just a mistake, and that was an embarrassment. But then we did get a couple of draws, and then it was a 1-0 win to Bristol, 2-0 win to us, and then we have lost 4-1. So whilst I say it's not a happy hunting ground, it is fresh in the memory from last year how embarrassing that was. Now, are we a team that makes the kind of mistakes that we made that day? I don't think we are. I think it's a place we can go and get a draw, but Bristol are showing some decent form. They have got 3 wins in their last, I think, 6 games. You know, they've beaten some decent sides. So we know what they've got. For me now, I would just, if we can get something out the Coventry game, if we can get a win in the Coventry game, I will just take going to Bristol, and if we can get something, I'll be happy. But for me, out of these two, it's the Coventry at home one. I am desperate to bounce back and get something out of. And then if we can go to Bristol and just get a point, I'll take it, because it's not, like you say, it's not an easy place to go.
No. Of course we would, but I actually think you're right. I think this is not the same team as last year. This is not a team that capitulates like that. Although I didn't actually think they were as much last year, but they still did it. I think they're actually a team, though, that will look at this and think, we need to set the record straight here. Yes, they've had 3 wins, and they're all at home, and they've not conceded a goal. So they've won 1-0 against Luton, 3-0 at home to Portsmouth, and 1-0 to Derby. But we saw Derby, and Derby are poor. We've seen Luton were poor, and we've seen Portsmouth, and we beat Portsmouth 3-0. So it's not insurmountable by any stretch. Can we go and get 6 points from these 2 games? Absolutely. Could we end up with none? Absolutely. We've got a run of games, though, where I think this will dictate our season. And how we do with this lack of depth, with these injuries, will dictate where we end up. If we can get 4 points out of these 2 games, then actually, fair play to them, and we start getting players back, we bring some people through the door, then actually we should be getting in the playoffs. I'm going to use the word should, because if we can get through it with the bare bones when we're playing 3 games in a week, then actually when everybody comes back and we get some more quality, we should. Well,
let's jump into that then. So let's get into the transfer conversation. We need to start. It's the elephant in the room. We've got injuries. We've got big injuries. We keep having them. There's the injury crisis we've got. We seem to have one every single year. And the only reason it's an injury crisis is because we haven't got anyone to replace him. It's not the numbers of injuries, it's the number of injuries compared to the number of players we have available. Now, we're not the only ones in this situation. A lot of clubs struggle to add depth. We said it before, if you're trying to add quality to a team, that you need to have the character and quality, and that comes at a price. Plus, you're bringing in players, they want to play. These players, they come in, they want to play. So, just adding depth is really difficult, because you've got to convince someone that to come in and be happy being a bit part player. And that's really difficult. That is a really difficult thing to do, to convince a professional footballer that might be young or up and coming, which is the kind of players that we've been looking at previously, to come and say, right, well, come and fight for the team. They don't want to do that. They want to come in, they want to play. So it is really difficult to add depth unless you're getting a Danny Bart, who's ended up actually being the first teamer, but bringing in players that are a little bit older. It's just, have we got money? Yes. Are we going to spend it? Probably not, because we just don't tend to spend money. So I think what we need to aim for is players that are they're probably slightly below what we've got. So you're looking League One, League Two kind of players that might step up. Those are the players that are going to be adding depth, and they're going to be risky signings because we don't. If we bring in players that are of better quality, that could upset the apple cart. Do you know what I'm getting at? It's a bit of a. I don't think I'm articulating it properly, but do you get what I'm getting at?
I completely get what you mean. I disagree slightly. I don't think it would necessarily upset the apple cart. I think if I was one of those players, I think Eustace is a fair manager. If you're playing well, you keep your shirt. So I think that would still stand. I don't think he'd be somebody who'd, Campbell, if he has a run of games where he's really not contributing at all, he'll find himself on the bench. So I don't think just because we bring somebody in, he would oust somebody unless it was a form thing. I think you've got to keep and earn your shirt. So from that perspective, I think if you bring in quality, and I'd be really happy because I'd be looking at it and saying, we have a chance of getting in the playoffs here. We've got a real chance. I think we're not going to bring a left back in, for example, when we've got Pickering that can play there. Yes, he's out till March. Ideally, we'd love to bring another left back in, but we're not going to do that because we've got Harry Pickering coming back, but we've got Owen Beck. We are looking to strengthen further forward. They've talked numerous times at the forum, when I've talked to them latterly, about us needing pace and about us needing a goal threat. Somebody that you can hang your hat on to get. They've talked 8 to 10 goals from now to the end of the season. They don't come cheap, you're right. We're not going to go and sign Brereton Diaz for 6-7 million. We're not going to go and get Tom Cannon on loan with a view to paying 13 million for him. We're not going to go and get John Joe Shelby on it, reported 80 grand a week. That's not happening. But I don't mind that to some extent. I think the links that we've had to people like Brandon Thomas Asante, I think are realistic. I could see that. Somebody who's been hungry, somebody who's athletic, somebody who you can imagine will fit into our team. And the other one, obviously, is at Wigan is Asgard, who's got a bit of quality on the ball, plays on the left-hand side. I think they're fit. I don't think he's pacey so much, so that doesn't really work. The only other way we could go is to try and go back to like a Brighton. Now, obviously, Evan Ferguson's been linked with a loan. I don't think we're going to be getting him. But you could try and go down that route. But as we've seen now, we've had Ayari, who, by the way, was playing at Old Trafford and running rings on Man United, but still couldn't deliver a ball. So it's not that we were wrong. It's just Man United are appalling. We've had Moran, not pulling any trees up at Stoke. We've got Kozia Dewberry, who's not, we hoped he would be a world beater. He's not demanding a place in the starting lineup every week. So without us going and paying a crazy loan fee, Man City don't seem to let their players out without a massive loan fee. Same for Liverpool. We're going to end up with players that, like we've got Deion Sanderson, who I think probably falls into the category of you're coming in as cover, but you will get a chance because it's a championship. And if you play well, you'll keep your shirt. Fair enough for him because he's not playing at the minute at Birmingham anyway. Forshaw, I think, is coming pretty much with the understanding of you can't play 3 games in a week. Once Travis and Tronstad are back in, you're going to have to do something pretty amazing to keep your shirt. But we'd love your experience around the place. And he's gone, well, I'm not really playing at Plymouth. I'd rather be floating around the playoffs and I want to be near my family. Perfect sense for him. That works. The people we're looking at now are big difference makers. And they don't really start moving until about now. I mean, Brereton Diaz has not played for Southampton for, a month now? And it's only just now that he's gone out the door when it was clear that he was going. So that must be a haggling thing. Man United have talked about Rashford going. That seems pretty straightforward to me. He wants to go. The club want him to go. He's still not gone. These are the deals that go down to the wire. And if anyone thinks that's Rovers doing it on purpose or they're trying to leave it till the last minute, they will be trying. They will be really, really trying to get these deals done. You don't know. Maybe teams are turning around and you're valuing someone at 2 million and they're saying we want 4. And then on the last minute, they go, you know what, we'll take 3. Well, no, we'll give you 2.5. And that's how it happens. Football clubs are notoriously idiotic and leave everything till the last minute. And then what will happen is some agent will ring somebody up and say, let's say it was Thomas Asante, and at the minute Lampard's going, do you know what, I fancy a look at him, I don't want him to go yet. What will happen is some agent will ring Frank Lampard up who knows him, and he'll turn around and say, I don't know, someone he's worked with before, it's not going to be Calvert-Lewin, but let's just say Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin fancies a loan. Can you give him some minutes? He can go today. Oh my God, where's that come from? Yeah, we'll take him. Oh, we need to free some space up. Bring Blackburn and tell them they can have Thomas Asante again for $1.5 million. That's how it works. It all falls into place and everything happens in a massive rush. I'm good. I don't want to give people false hope. This will go to the wire. If we bring one of those players in before the last day, I'll be very surprised. But Rovers are working. I know for a fact they are working really, really hard to bring these players in. They're having conversation. You know, we've got Adam Owens, who's worked at Lech Poznan. He's worked in Europe. He'll be using, his phone will be running out of battery all the time. He'll be using those contacts, ringing the people he knows, speaking to agents, trying to bring one of them in. But that's a gamble, bringing them from abroad. Gested will be doing the same. You know, Steve Waggett knows, you know, he's brought in people from Coventry before, hence the links. Agents will be firing players at us, but it's got to fit all of that. We need somebody.
I was just about to actually say to you then about the new recruitment team. What do you think that changes the dynamics this window?
I think what Rudy said was the dynamics of that doesn't really change it too much this window, because in the January window, you need people that are going to come in. So they needed a bit of depth, but they now need people. And that's the forward areas. It's no secret. One of the wings they want, pace out wide, and they want somebody to score goals. What they need those players to come in and affect the first team. So they want them to come in and hit the ground running. So that means what he'd said, they need to be based in the UK or a league that's comparable. So you're talking Bundesliga, maybe French league, maybe Dutch league, but really you're talking leagues at a pretty similar standard and pace. And they're still a gamble. Now, from what they're telling me, is they're willing to spend money if it's pretty guaranteed. So, for example, I'm not saying for a second this is going to happen, but Adam Armstrong's pretty guaranteed goals in the Championship. If Rovers could pick him up and they'd say, here's his wages, you're guaranteed Adam Armstrong will come from now to the end season, the noises are coming out. They genuinely do it. They want people that they can hang their hat on. So they're willing to pay the money because they know this team's so well drilled, is so good at keeping clean sheets that actually we create some chances, but if we could guarantee that somebody, you know, Smodics last year would put those goals away. We know now if we had Smodics in this team from Smodics last year, I think we'd be shooing for the playoffs right now.
I think that's the main thing. They're not risk takers anymore, are they?
No.
You know,
So
they'll take the risk on a million, maybe two on a player.
Yeah, they will.
But when it comes to the actual real money now, they want to make sure that money's being spent sensibly, and that's because they've been bitten before, and I get that.
Yeah.
But we see a lot of clubs spending a lot of money on very risky signings, and our owners just aren't willing to do that.
No, they're not willing to go and spend that money on, ironically, on the same player, but on Brereton Diaz. Because is he going to guarantee us 20 goals a season? Probably not. He might get 10, he might get 15, he might have one season where he gets 5, he might have one season where he gets 25. If somebody's guaranteeing goals, I think if a Jordan Rhodes came up again, like when we got him last time, I think they would do it again. But what they're not willing to do is gamble on a Brereton at, what was he, 17? On Sam Gallagher when he's not proven, which will be like an Ellis Sims. They will do it if somebody's proven. But they're kind of, because of what they need right now, they need somebody who, almost like when Billy Sharp was around, he guaranteed you goals in the Championship, didn't he? Somebody like that, they will do.
I do think football's changed, though, where you don't get these kind of figures anymore. No. Because most of them, when they get, I mean, look at Smodics last year. You know, back in the day, he would have stayed with Rovers and maybe done it another season, maybe another season after that, and then would have got picked up. Nowadays, Premier League clubs like your Ipswiches that go up, they get a bit of money in their pocket and they're like, you know what? I'm going to take a gamble on this lad, and the deal's done and they're gone. So it's very rare that you'll actually get, I think now, a Billy Sharp or Jordan Rhodes, a McCormick, you know, these players that were renowned for scoring goals in the lower levels. they're just not known. We just don't do it anymore. They're picked out of the leagues, and the big boys take the risks on them, or the clubs with money take risks on them before we can even get there. So I do think there needs to be an element of risk. But who in League One right now is ripping it apart, where you think, oh, do you know what? Let's go and spend. But I mean, they're probably going to ask for 3-4 million. Even if there was someone in League One or League Two ripping it up, they're still going to ask for a lot of money. So it's still going to be a risk. But like you said, they're not looking to waste money. And a lot of teams, just like you said, they play silly games throughout the whole window. I mean, we've all seen the documentaries. Like Sunderland Till I Die with the owner, where he bought Will Grigg for a ridiculous amount. I mean, when I watched that, I was absolutely cringing. But that's what happens, and the Venky's probably watched it and thought, we don't want to be like that as well.
Yeah, and I think everything we've ever been told is that, and if you look back, to be fair, if they sold a business plan for it, they will do it. They did it with Diaz, they did it with Gallagher. They've done it before with other players. If you can sell them a real, they did it the season we first came down. They were sold a business plan that you buy these players and you'll go straight back up. If it makes business sense, they'll do it. So the young English striker was our thing at one stage. Now it's about guaranteeing. And so what generally happens is they'll run the data on what they need. But right now, what they're saying is they want people who have scored goals in the English top two divisions. Well, they come at a big price. So then they're narrowing it down, and how much can we get them for? There is, so for example, there's one striker that I know John Eustace put their name forward, and their data was run on the metrics. They spoke to the club, found out the figure of wages, and Eustace was really pushing for him, and they were willing to do it. He wasn't the one the others would have chosen, but they were willing to do it. And then they looked at his injury record and they were very, very reticent, because if they bring him in and he breaks down, as fans, we're going to turn around and go, and probably as a manager, well, we've still not got that player we need. We're going to have to go again. We can't afford to do that. So they won't even take a risk on injuries because we've been burnt with that before. We can't afford to gamble and it go wrong. So we need to take a very, very calculated gamble. I think the figures talked about for Thomas Asante, for example, pretty calculated. I think even if he came and scored us 2 or 3 goals in the next year and did all right, you'd probably get $1 million back for him. So that's fine. If he went and bagged you 15 goals or played for the next 5 years, yeah, fine. And I think you can probably balance that one out, because if Dolan goes out, you probably get the similar figure in compensation. So would you swap one for the other? I don't know. That's a decision they've got to make. But they are willing to do it, but they're not going to gamble on. So Duncan Maguire, for example, I know there was all sorts going on with that, but what I'm led to believe is the figures got too rich for the gamble to be taken. Yeah, the metrics look good. Yeah, he looked good, but the figures just got too rich. And then by the time they'd managed to whittle them down to a figure Rovers were comfortable with, obviously it all absolutely fell apart. And people,
and that goes back to exactly what we said with the Ohashi signings, the Gay signings. There's a different element of risk. So it's not actually as much of a financial risk with players like that. It's more from an ability risk. So if you don't spend as much, there's your risk, because if you're not spending as much, you're not normally getting the quality, or there's a risk on that signing. And we're being linked to players now. I mean, I'm seeing names like Urbanski, who I'd never heard of until we spoke just before the pod. Lewis O'Brien, once again, why he would even entertain coming to us after what happened last time, I don't know. But the club obviously apparently are still interested in him. We've already talked about Asante, Thomas, and all of these players. I'm not seeing anything concrete coming through, because like we said last week, we're not the team to do that. And like you've said just now, they are, you strike while the iron's hot. I don't know many people that have called our signings before they've happened. Everything's been like, you'll get a tweet. I've got the alerts on Twitter. I'll look and it's like Rovers signed player. I'm like, where's this come from?
Yeah,
and Yeah, and it's just like it's, and I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying. It just comes down to striking while the iron's hot. They've got a list of players that they're willing to go for and willing to take the risk. Going back to it, yes, I would love to have players that have make big plays in big games, and that they come in and they improve us. I think when I made the comment about upsetting the apple cart, I think that was more of a Travis thing, because I know Travis got a little bit upset when he wasn't being used, and there was other players coming in. So I think that there is an element of that, but I want us to have a squad that is capable of playing EFL football regularly, and you can handle a few injuries. At this moment in time, we can't. So, is the loan market something we're going to dip into? Probably. But like you said, that is a last minute thing. You get a phone call because some other club's got it. I mean, we're being linked to people that you've mentioned to me over the last few days. And we've talked about random players that I'd never heard of. I'm doing research for just in case we sign them and we want to do a release video. And that's just the nature of January football and the loan system and youth football. These Brighton loanees we've had, I didn't expect any of them. I mean, even Van Heck, who's probably the most successful Brighton loanee we've had, I didn't know anything about him when he came. So, yeah, gems can come from anywhere. I hope they do, and I hope we get something from a permanent point of view. Can you see us getting anyone a sensible price?
I think the club know it'll be damaging if they don't. I think they know that. But it's balancing that with... Rudy said something in one of the forums where he'd said, we can't afford to be emotional anymore in the transfer market. Emotional decisions are bad decisions. And he actually was basically referencing the Joe Rothwell and Brereton Diaz rejecting offers, where there were offers that financially it was daft not to take them because of the impact they could have had then in reinvesting. But I would imagine that applies to us buying players. So let's say we want player X and we think 2.5 million max will go to. We ain't going to find ourselves on deadline day going up to 3.5. I don't think. I really don't. But if that risks us having nobody, I worry about that, because if you're John Eustace, does that mean that you're going to lose your manager? Does it mean? But the club's going to be here a lot longer than everybody else. I'll be as frustrated as anybody. I think a loan player, they know all the players from the 21s. They know all the players from the big clubs. I think that would be an extra. I think if somebody like I saw Jayden Dan's link the other day. I think if Liverpool rang up and said, or Jayden Dan's his agent said, do you know what, he is available now, then it'd be quite low cost. It's not something we're going to be pushing, because I think we've got enough young players, or enough players that might do it, might not. We're kind of not sure when they come off the bench, like Cozy Dewberry. So what we're looking for is players we can hang our hat on. If we can add some depth with those young players, and they might do it, they'll be an extra. I can't see us not bringing 2 players in that could start. But we've got a lot of work to do because we've not got many days left.
No, I hope so too. There was a thought that came into my mind then, actually. You said something. I think this is the first winter window I can remember where I'm not worried about anyone leaving Rovers. And is that damning that we're in that situation? Because we've had your Schmodics, your Breretons, your Adam Whartons, going back, your Adam Armstrongs, even going back to your Jordan Rose. We've always had someone where you're just like, if we can just keep him through the window, we've got a chance. It's a little bit damning that there's no one in the squad that's team sniffing around. I mean, we've talked about we've got some form players coming like your Callum Brittons now, but there's no one in our squad that anyone's sniffing around at, is there?
Britain was linked, wasn't it, with Sunderland for about 5 million. And I started thinking, mean, if you could get Owen Beck for a couple of million and Britain went and you brought another right back in, I started thinking about these things. I think that there's probably some truth in that, to be fair, mate. Yeah, that, we've not got that one player. I actually go the other way a bit with it, though. Does it actually mean that we are not? Let's be honest, if we'd have lost Smodic last January, we'd have been knackered. If we'd have lost Diaz the time when we were going for promotion, we'd have been knackered, or Rothwell. I actually think it's more of a...
We're not over-reliant.
We're not over-reliant, are we? We've not got... But there's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, we've not got that star name. But I think we've also probably made, like you said last week, we kind of made peace a bit that if Dolan went or Sigurdsson went...
Who?
Exactly. Back in training. He's not watching Preston this week. Yeah. So, two ways.
Interesting if I'll tell you what, though, it will be interesting if he comes back and he's got a new lease of life.
But he is a difference maker.
Really interesting.
Would I put it beyond? Could he get 8 to 10 goals from now to the end of the season? Yeah, if he wanted to.
Well, put your comments down below on that one. Who would you worry you if they left? And is there anyone that you would actually think people would sniff at and come for? It's just an interesting one. It just bounced into my head then. It was something you said. But yeah, we move on that, and we'll have a little look at the mailbag because there was a few questions that we've had to come in today. In fact, Jeff Hoyle's actually commented about Brereton, saying because we was linked to him, what are the chances he scores against us on the last day of the season, meaning we miss out on the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what, generally that's not an easy fixture to try and deal with when you're trying to get into the playoffs, is it? But
you say that, but there'll be a sure promotion then. So, like Leicester, they'll have been on the pop, so we're all right.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
I'll buy the
Tim. So Tim asks, with Tronstad and Travis both potentially out for a while. I mean, I'm not too sure what the official time scales will be, but it's going to be a few weeks without them, isn't it?
Is expected to be on the grass next week.
Right, so you're talking a good 2-3 weeks before he's even looking at playing again.
Probably, I think he'll probably be in the mix. We've got Wolves, haven't we? So you probably leave him for that. He'll be back in the week after.
So Tim asks, do we attempt to tweak our style of play to suit a new midfield pairing, or do we tell them to fit our existing style? So this is an interesting one because obviously Tronstad and Travis are very unique players for us. I always said that Garrett was a Travis, and Tronstad. I mean, who would replace Tronstad? But I think you've got to tweak it. You can't try and force players at this level to change the way that they play. I mean, Buckley's come in. We've called him out the last week, and we want him to start trying to make the position his own. But could you see him playing the Tronstad role?
I think they'll play it differently, but I think he's going to have to play the Travis role in terms of getting forward a bit more and back and having to have the energy. And he actually did that to quite good effect, to be fair, in a very, very, very different way to Travis. But Forsha's not going to have the legs to do that. So Forsha's going to have to do the mopping up and the simple stuff of Tronstad, and Buckley's going to have to do the driving, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I agree. I think generally it's a horses for courses situation. Once again, we're using that same term because every team that's playing us now, the players that are coming in are not first team players for us because we were quite bare in that position after having a couple of years of being really strong in that position. I do feel like we're quite bare. I don't think JRC is trusted in centre mid anymore. He seems to be either his right wing or right back. It doesn't seem like it's a position he'll play under Eustace. So yeah, I just think it's a grin and bear it until they're back, unless we can get people signed on. Speaking of signings, Ollie's asked, we sign a striker who's capable of well, he's put signing, we are capable of scoring 10 plus goals before the end of the season, where do you think we'd finish? Or do you think we'd need to sign a couple more decent players to finish above? So I think he's basically asking, do we need to get, if we got a striker that gets 10 plus goals, is that the difference maker between us getting in the playoffs and not?
1,000,000%. I think we've got such a foundation and such a solid base to our team under Eustace that we know we can grind results out. It's just whether we take our chances at the other end.
Yeah, and it's not like the way that we play, it's not like you just go and buy a poacher. They need to have need to have an else to find that space. You know, when you're playing on your own there, even if you've got a talented player like Campbell and you've got wingers that are crossing them in or playing it through, you've got to have that movement. And this is why I was really chuffed with how Leonard played against Middlesbrough. I know that he didn't get a goal, but there was some things with his movement that he could be that player if he just develops nicely that can play that position. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, every team's looking for a 10 plus goal striker. And I think they're very expensive. He says that we could finish between 6th and 10th. I think we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. The first thing is getting the current players fit. We have too many injuries. That just happens. But we definitely need to find people that are willing to come in, add that depth and some quality as well. That is obviously a broad brush to paint with. But yeah. Other question in the mailbag. So we've got Ben. We know Cantwell wants to drop in and link play, but he has to support Gay to get closer to him. Buckley can link play from deep. We hit Gay and there's nobody near him, and then he gets the backlash. We played 2 promoted teams this week and expected a lot more from Cantwell, to be honest. So I think Ben's one of the ones that has been a supporter of Gay and has basically said that we was being a bit harsh with him last week. So I think you're right, Ben. I think we do need to play Gay to his strengths. I do think that if you're just knocking it up to him on his own, he's not the kind of player that's got the technical ability to bring it down and pass it off. But do we change the whole way we play just for one player?
I think this is where the pace out wide comes in. I think that's where people need to be getting in and around him. I don't think he's wrong about Cantwell. I think Cantwell, when he gets close to Gay, he makes us more threatening. I think the only danger with that, but he's right, Buckley's got that quality as well, is you look at the first goal against Portsmouth and it came from Cantwell doing just that. I don't worry about Cantwell in the same way I used to with Smodics when he came back in his own half. But there is an element when Cantwell starts getting frustrated and coming searching for it. Not when he's doing it almost by design. When he's coming and he's frustrated, which was happening against Oxford, then he becomes a bit of a pain in the arse because he starts losing ball in silly areas and trying to do things that just aren't going to come off. I think it's probably a bad sign for how we're playing when he drops deep. Yeah. But I think the wingers have to provide some support.
Yeah. 100%, and I think it's going to be it's a work in progress. We've said that all along. The club has been a work in progress for quite a while. You've kindly explained everything that's going on the forum. You've explained everything from a signings point of view, what we're aiming for as a club. It's frustrating as fans. It really is. You want a fix. You want it now. But it's just not that easy, and I don't think it will be easy at all, especially in January. But we're coming to the end of the podcast now, and we wish we could give you more information on signings that we think are coming in or anything like that. We discussed before the pod, what players can we talk about? There's just none that we can say, yes, this is looking solid or anything like that. We hear so many different things from so many different outlets. Mark's constantly getting messages as well about we've been linked to this player and that player. But like we said, when it happens, when it happens. I know that we want to hear the rumours and we want to get excited. I think we just all turn on our X notifications, and when Rovers tweet something out, we can all get excited. But until then, there's not much we can talk about, is there, Mark?
No, and I'm just having a double check then. It is when I thought that the deadline is the 3rd of February this year. So it's 2 weeks as we're recording it today at 11 p.m. So I don't know. I might see if I can. So Monday night, 11 p.m. What else have you got to do? I might see if I can do a bit of a live. But yeah, I expect
Well,
it
thanks
to be
to yeah.
busy-ish.
Okay. Yeah. I don't like it when it goes down to the final moments from a sensible point of view, but from a fan point of view, it is quite exciting because I remember David Bentley, he signed really late, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think I remember waking up the next morning and checking my notifications, and it was like, oh my God, we've got David Bentley. He's pretty decent, he is.
Yeah, that's what I don't like, though. When you go to bed and you think, well, I mean, particularly with us, recent history, have they, haven't they? But I don't like that. I want to know at 11 p.m. has it happened or not? Not, the deadline's a deadline. Tell me, has it happened? But in the end, you wake up in the morning and there'll be like a couple of loans. I think we did that with IR, didn't we? Just snuck through and they just happened to mention it in the morning. You're like, what's going on here? I think Rovers fans have been burnt a little bit, so we would rather it happened. I'd rather, as much as we all love the excitement of deadline day and we get a yellow tie out and Jim White, doesn't know Jim White anymore, is it? But Jim White gets all excited. It's not quite what it used to be. And I'd much rather that on the Sunday night, Rovers announce their 2 signings. We're really happy with them. And then they announce another loan at 12 p.m. on the Monday. And then Eustace says, I'm going home now to bed. I'm knackered. And they mean it. And that's it. Job done. I'd settle for that this year.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it?
No.
It's not the Rovers way.
Anyone who's bored on Monday, 2 weeks today as we're recording it, go down to the... I'm not encouraging hundreds of people to this. Go down to the Avenue, go down to the training centre, see who's rocking up. You never know. Luca Toni might be down there. Zidane. Who else did we say we've been linked with? Lewandowski might be there. You just never know.
Well, we're going to talk about that question of the week a little bit closer to the time because I think it'll get people excited to talk about Rovers signings that didn't happen, that could have happened. And maybe if the channel grows, we'll do a live pub thing where we're all in front of the telly and we're all there together doing it, seeing us signing some quality players. But until then, thanks to everyone that did put a question into the mailbag and on the X. We do read them all. Obviously, some questions we don't get to because we have approached a lot of that in the main bulk of the pod. But Mark, it's been 96-minute therapy session once again.
Yeah,
we love talking Rovers, don't we?
Of course we do. And I'm off to go and book the Avenue Hotel for a live special for the Blackburn End Pod 2 weeks tonight. Yeah, why not? Let's book it.
Oh, God, that would be amazing. But yeah, cheers, Mark, for joining me today. And thank you to everyone that's listened. It's been another bumper pod. We've talked all things Rovers. Let's just cross our fingers next week. We've got 6 points. We've got some nice new signings.
Yes.
All the injuries are all coming through nicely and we're all positive. So until then, everyone, Mark, have a great week.
You too.
And thanks to everyone for listening.